Good. If you're not awake after that song to open up, then you need to just go back to bed probably. That was something, wasn't it? The national anthem. Most importantly, congratulations. What a great day this is for all of you. And I must say for me too, it's an honor. It really is an honor for me to be here in front of you on this incredibly important day. Before I get into my speech, I want to mention something too, tell a story. You know, I was getting ready for this commencement speech, and you always read other commencement speeches, and you make notes and everything. And before you know it, I had sketched out about an hour and a half long speech, and I thought, okay, that's probably not going to work. And so I started thinking, okay, I need to cut this down, and I am. And one of the reasons I'm able to usually try to keep it fairly brief is a lesson I learned very early. Ray mentioned I worked in the legislature. I worked for a state senator from South Texas. And at the time I worked for him, there was something called a brucellosis epidemic here in Texas. And I don't know if any of you know what brucellosis is. Some people do. It's a sexually transmitted cow disease. So if you're sitting next to one of those people who knows about it, you might want to be careful. Wash your hands after you shake their hands. But seriously, brucellosis was the real issue back then, and there was a special session, and I was fairly new on Senator Truon's staff, and he was going to give a speech, and he wasn't able to do it, and I was going to go give a speech to farmers and ranchers down in South Texas on this issue as a special session was coming up. So this is my first chance to really give a big speech, and I was young, and I was excited. I was going to prove I knew what was going on, and I prepared, and I wrote this great, probably hour and a half speech. Well, on the day of the speech, or a few days before the speech, a hurricane hit South Texas and blew through, but didn't bother me. I was going to go give my speech, and I drove down there to right outside of Robstown, outside of Corpus, and went down there, went to the high school gymnasium, I think it was, and went inside. And instead of the crowd I'd expected, there were 3 ranchers there. But I thought, these guys came, and they probably came to eat sandwiches, drink coffee, but I thought, well, I'm going to give them my speech. I worked on this speech, and it's a good speech, and I gave that whole hour and a half speech. At the end of it, the 3 guys got up. 2 of them walked out the door before I said hi. One of them came up to me and said, "Son, you're probably going to do this for a long time, aren't you?" And I said, "I hope so. I enjoy public service, and I'm looking forward to this." And he said, "Let me give you some advice." He said, "I raise about 1,000 head of cattle just outside of here." And he said, "During the winter, it gets really cold down here in South Texas sometime." I said, "Yes, sir, I know that." And he goes, "When it's icy and cold, I fill up my truck with bales of hay, and I drive out there to see those cattle." And he said, "If only 3 cows show up, I don't drop the whole damn load." And I said, "Thank you very much." And that's a lesson I've always learned. So I edited my speech, and I'm not going to drop the whole damn load on you guys here. Before I go any further, I want to thank Chancellor Ray Martinez. I've known Ray for a long time, as he said, and he's distinguished himself in public service, both in the Capitol and in higher education here in Texas and Washington, D.C. When I heard the announcement that Ray was the new chancellor for Western Governors University, Texas, I just immediately thought, what a perfect match. And I'd also like to thank Dr. President Bob Mendenhall here today, too, not only for the opportunity to speak here today, because this really is an honor, but also for the tremendous leadership you and WGU have shown and in helping it to flourish now with over 40,000 students nationwide in all 50 states, and for leading WGU as a truly disruptive force in our nation's approach to higher education. And I use the term disruptive force in the most admiringly way possible, because this is what really jazzes me up about being here today and being able to speak to you guys. Recently, the Harvard Business School professor Clayton Christensen called educational institutions like WGU the first wave of educational disruptive innovation. And I think he meant that as a compliment, because we need that kind of disruptive innovation. Western Governors University was a revolutionary idea from the very beginning, when the Republican governor of Utah, Michael Leavitt, and the Democratic governor of Colorado, Roy Romer, and actually Governor Jim Geringer, who's here on the stage today from Wyoming, who was actually at those very first meetings and signed on to the first charter, they took the lead nearly 2 decades ago to develop at the time what was a fairly radical idea of an online university. And what's interesting is at the time, I think a lot of people thought the radical idea was the technology part, online, which seemed like a radical idea at the time, 2 decades ago. But in reality, all of those governors, including Governor Geringer here with us today, were going for something much more transformational. They understood that if they were going to transform higher education, which had to happen, they had to change more than just how it was delivered. I read a story that Governor Romer, and I was talking with Governor Geringer about today, got the idea of competency-based learning that you guys have all been through here when he read about flight school, and how in flight school, once you demonstrate your ability to fly, you're able to get a pilot's license, which is a good idea for those of us on the ground, that you have to demonstrate your ability to fly before you get the license. But in addition to a new way of delivering education, it also turned out that this approach was a really smart business model. Think back to the economic crisis of 2008 and the dramatic effect it had on university campuses all across America. Colleges began capping enrollment because they couldn't afford growing enrollments, and they began to pass more and more of their cost onto students. State legislatures, the federal government often panicked and began to dramatically cut, particularly here in Texas sometimes, the funding for higher education. But guess what? WGU proved not only to be a revolutionary way to educate students and to allow mid-career people, like so many of you here today, the opportunity to get an education when it might be more difficult. It also satisfied an ever-increasing need to provide high-quality higher education at an affordable cost. And that's really, as you think about going to the future and the realities of our public funding for education, finding a way to do it smarter, faster, better, and cheaper is the key to what the future is all about. And WGU has succeeded, not only WGU Texas, which is evidenced by the great crowd and the group of graduates you have here today, but WGU nationally has succeeded. A 2010 study funded by the Gates Foundation compared WGU's graduation rate by age brackets to that of a typical state system of higher education. For students starting WGU in their 20s, the completion rate was 18% higher than a comparable state system that they compared it to. For students in their 40s, it was 28% higher. Because of its fundamentally different way of approaching the old ways of doing things, WGU is a disruptive force because it's proven itself to be a transformational force. And transformation, that's when I was getting ready, when Ray first talked to me about speaking here today, and we were talking about what WGU has accomplished and the kind of students the kind of graduates I was going to be able to speak in front of today. Transformation is the word that just kept coming to mind for me. That's what inspires me about being here today. You know, when I read a lot of those commencement speeches, people talk about inspiring commencement speakers. Ironically, I think actually I'm inspired by all of you out here today because of what you've accomplished, particularly when you've had to stop a career and do what you do. WGU is an institution that was founded on challenging the status quo, and each of you today is a testament to the power of transformation. WGU is particularly inspirational to me because I work in an industry, healthcare, that needs dramatic transformation. Not only the screwed up website that you're reading about, but actually the fundamentals of healthcare have to change. We have a system that was all about waiting till people got sick and then getting paid a lot of money to try to get them well enough to get them out of the hospital. That model doesn't work anymore, and it shouldn't work, and none of us should allow that to be the model that exists. Instead, we have to figure out how do you incentivize and pay people to keep people well? How do we make hospitals the last place that a hospital company ever wants someone to go to, because their job is to keep them out of the hospital? And that's going to change. It's very hard. I work with a lot of folks who've been in healthcare for a long time, and it's extremely difficult for them to envision a different day, a day when hospitals are not what it's about, but keeping people well and healthy is what it's about. But it's going to happen because there are people out there, just like you guys, who are committed to transformation, their lives and the lives of other people around them. They're agents of disruption, and they're not going to be satisfied with incremental change, but profound transformation. I was recently reminded, too, of this importance of really thinking about transformation, not just change, but transformation, because transformation is so much more than just change. Ray mentioned I've been involved with the development of a new medical school here at the University of Texas, and it's really some exciting work. Just south of here, there's a large chunk of land that's going to be turned into a medical school, a new teaching hospital, a whole new medical district. And actually, we're calling it the Innovation District. Basically, the Frank Irwin Center, some of you are aware of, is going to be brought down in about 5 to 6, 7 years. That whole area down there is going to be rebuilt, and there's a whole innovation district we're trying to create. And we're very excited about this. It has huge implications. They're estimating 15 to 25,000 new jobs to be developed in that area. Just an amazing transformation. We went to Boston recently because Boston has a wonderful innovation district, and a bunch of us went up there to learn what makes that Boston innovation district so special. It's called Kendall Square. It's an incredibly successful model. I understand it has more bioscience companies per square inch than anywhere in the world. And when you go up there, you can see it. It's just this teeming mass of people who are doing incredible things. You've got headquarters for Google, not headquarters, but you've got big offices for Google and Microsoft and major pharmaceutical companies. But as we were up there, very proud of ourselves for what we're going to do here, the folks at Kendall Square and in Boston and at Harvard and MIT and all the places we visited kept saying, you guys are thinking too small. Don't think too small. And all of them said, some of whom had been there from the very beginning, if only we could be in your shoes now and think bigger than we thought. And we kept thinking, here is this incredible innovation district that's known worldwide, and they're afraid they thought too small. And we came back and we had to reassess what we're thinking about when it comes to this medical district, this innovation district, this medical school. And you think about all that we have here in Central Texas and a great Tier 1 research institute, the kind of institutes like WGU Texas that are popping up, other institutions, a great business community, entrepreneurs, venture capital, and we realized we were thinking too small because we weren't thinking about transformation. We were just thinking about change. And it really came back. And it came back and hit us hard, and we were rethinking what we're going to try to do. You know, it's hard to define transportation, but you usually know when it's happened. The classic symbols, the butterfly, you know, when a butterfly comes out, it's the perfect metaphor because it's so dramatic. But think about if it was just change, or if we just saw it in a mechanical sense, how trivial it would sound if we saw this beautiful, fragile thing fly in front of you, and you thought, what an improved caterpillar. It just wouldn't be the same, because a butterfly is just so fundamentally, profoundly different, and that's what transformation is about. Transformation implies that something entirely new has been created. Transformation involves approaching the unknown, reaching for it, and then existing in that unknown and changing it. It's for that reason today that this should be a celebration so much more than just about graduation, and particularly because of what you have accomplished here in the place of where you are in your lives and what you've accomplished with this graduation. For some of you today, this is maybe a second start, maybe it's even a third start. I'm sure many of you thought this was a risky decision to try something different, to try this model of education that seemed a little bit different, maybe to put a career on hold, or to switch careers, or actually to keep a career going while you got ready for another career. That had to be scary. But I'm confident because I know what so many accomplished and the statistics that Ray told me about, that all of you have accomplished a personal transformation with this graduation today. And that's what you need to celebrate. I bet all of you could tell me stories about the challenge of getting this degree from WGU Texas while you juggled a work schedule, raised a family, and yeah, you had to get good grades too on top of all that. I'm sure there are stories, there are nights when everyone else is asleep in the house that you continue to work. But just like WGU Texas and WGU has reinvented the idea of college, each of you is now in the process of redefining who you are. And I urge you, just like the folks in Boston and Kendall Square urged us here in Austin, don't settle for incremental change with what you've just been given. When you signed up at WGU Texas, you were being very intentional about creating a new reality, whether you realized it or not. You took a big step, a big risk. And it's only with intention that you can have transformation. Without intention, it's just about change. Some may see graduation as a box to check. And I know when I go to graduations, high school, and lots of colleges, that's even sometimes the case. Or it's something that you just want to put on your resume. But what you have accomplished here, because of your unique circumstances and this unique model, I think is so much more. So celebrate that transformation that you've begun. Celebrate the something new that you have created, or that you have the opportunity to create. Something that's never existed, and I bet probably couldn't have even been predicted by you just a few years ago. And celebrate your willingness to take a risk, and don't ever lose that willingness to do. And of course, celebrate the fact that it's over. I'm sure that's a good thing too. So I don't want to overstep this too much. Celebrate that you're done. But the very fact that you succeeded at this innovative school proves to me that you have moxie, you have the brains, you have the stamina to be involved in additional transformations down the road, perhaps even changes so big that none of us can imagine today. The school that you chose to get this degree from started out almost 2 decades ago to be revolutionary, and there are many who will say it's succeeding. The risk you took and the work you have done to receive this degree has become an opportunity to revolutionize your life and maybe even more. The spiritual writer Marianne Williamson, an author, she's written a number of books. 4 of them I know have been New York Times bestsellers. Has a quote that I like and I want to use today too. As we go, so goes the world, for the world is us. The revolution that will save the world is ultimately a personal one. It all begins with you. And maybe ironically, I just read the other day that Ms. Williamson has just announced she's going to run for Congress and is going to try to change the world. God bless her and hope she can change that place. Remember that revolutionary spirit that you have inside you now that compelled you to sign up for WGU Texas. When you go back to work on Monday, be confident in your ability to be an agent of transformation, because you have proven that you are an agent of transformation. Good luck on that personal revolution that you have begun. And thank you so much again for the honor of speaking here today. And again, congratulations. You are all incredibly inspiring to me, and I wish you all the best. Thank you very much, and good luck.